The streets of Philadelphia pulsated with rhythm and rhyme. It was the late 1980s, and hip-hop was exploding from boomboxes and onto the airwaves. A new generation of artists emerged from the city's neighborhoods, their lyrics reflecting the realities of their lives, dreams, struggles, and the desire for a better tomorrow. Among them were Christopher Cool C. Roney and Warren Stallone, two young men who would become both icons and cautionary tales. Their stories, intertwined with the vibrant tapestry of Philly hip-hop, take a tragic turn, forever etching their names in the annals of crime and punishment. The energy was infectious, the beats were raw, and the lyrics were real. Cool C, with his smooth flow and charismatic stage presence, quickly became a local hero. His hit song Glamorous Life captured the aspirations of many, a catchy anthem of ambition and escape. Steady B, on the other hand, brought a harder edge to his music, his rhymes reflecting the grit and grind of street life. Together, they represented the duality of the hip-hop dream, the allure of success, and the harsh realities that often lurked beneath the surface. Their music resonated with fans who saw in them a reflection of their lives. But as their fame grew, so did the pressures that came with it. The allure of fast money and street credibility proved to be a damnation, and paved with gold began to take a sinister turn. Cool C's star power was undeniable. His music had crossed over from local clubs to national radio, and his face graced magazine covers. He had a taste of the good life, and he craved more. But the music industry was fickle, and the royalties from his hit single began to dwindle. The streets, with their promises of quick riches, whispered seductive promises in his ear. The transition from hip-hop artist to criminal was gradual, a descent fueled by desperation and misguided ambition. What started with petty theft escalated into more serious offenses. Cool C surrounded himself with a new crew, individuals who saw him not as a star but as a means to an end. Among them was Mark Canty, a hardened street hustler who would become his partner in crime. The lines between Cool C's former life and his new reality blurred. He justified his actions as a means to an end, convincing himself that he was merely reclaiming what he felt he was owed. The music, once his passion, became a backdrop to his criminal exploits, a soundtrack to his downward spiral. Steady B's story was different, yet tragically parallel. He never achieved the same level of mainstream success as Cool C, but his music held sway over the streets. His lyrics, raw and unflinching, resonated with those who knew the harsh realities of life in the shadows. But Steady B was also a man of contradictions, capable of both charisma and chilling violence. He had a loyal following, but his temper and impulsiveness often overshadowed his talent. He was drawn to the streets, not out of desperation like Cool C, but out of a misguided sense of loyalty and a thirst for power. He surrounded himself with a crew that fed his ego and validated his worst instincts. When Cool C approached him with a plan to rob a bank, Steady B didn't hesitate. He saw it as a way to prove himself, to solidify his reputation as someone not to be trifled with. The music, once his outlet, became a tool for intimidation, his lyrics taking on a menacing new meaning. The plan was hatched in the shadows, fueled by greed and desperation. Cool C, Mark Canty, and Steady B saw themselves as modern-day outlaws, above the law and beyond consequence. They targeted a PNC bank on Rising Sun Avenue in Philadelphia, believing it to be an easy mark. Their arrogance blinded them to the potential consequences of their actions, to the innocent lives they were about to endanger. They planned their heist with meticulous detail, assigning roles and rehearsing their movements. Cool C and Canty would enter the bank disguised as construction workers, their faces hidden behind hard hats and dust masks. They would brandish weapons, intimidate the employees, and demand cash. Steady B, the getaway driver, would wait outside in a stolen minivan, engine running. Their plan was built on a foundation of arrogance and delusion. They believed they could control the situation, that their actions would have no real victims. They failed to grasp the fundamental truth that violence, once unleashed, has a life of its own. Section 5. January 2nd, 1996. The day tragedy struck. The morning of January 2nd, 1996, dawned cold and clear in Philadelphia. The city was still shaking off the remnants of New Year's celebrations, oblivious to the tragedy about to unfold. At the PNC Bank on Rising Sun Avenue, employees and customers went about their day, unaware that they were about to become pawns in a deadly game. Cool C and Mark Canty, disguised in their construction worker garb, entered the bank just after 9 a.m. They moved with practiced ease, their movements a grotesque parody of the laborers they were impersonating. Weapons drawn, they barked orders, herding employees and customers to the floor. Fear hung thick in the air, a palpable presence that tightened throats and quickened pulses. Outside, Steady B sat behind the wheel of the stolen minivan, engine idling, his eyes darting back and forth between the bank entrance and the street. Minutes ticked by, each one an eternity. He felt a knot of anxiety in his stomach, a growing sense of unease. Section 6. Officer Laretha Baird, a life cut short. Officer Laretha Baird was a familiar face in the Olney neighborhood. Known for her dedication and compassion, she was more than just a police officer. She was a pillar of the community. On that fateful morning, she was responding to a silent alarm at the PNC Bank, unaware that she was walking into a scene of unfolding chaos. As Officer Baird entered the bank, her hand resting on her service weapon, her eyes scanned the room, taking in the scene. Before she could fully assess the situation, a shot rang out, echoing through the bank. The bullet, fired from Cool C's gun, struck Officer Baird in the chest, fatally wounding her. The chaos escalated, the robbery dissolving into a scene of panic and terror. Cool C and Canty, their faces now contorted with fear, grabbed bags of cash and fled the bank, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. Section 7. The Aftermath, Capture, Trial, and Sentencing. The manhunt was swift and relentless. The city of Philadelphia, outraged by the senseless murder of one of their own, demanded justice. Witnesses provided descriptions of the getaway vehicle, and within hours, the police had Steady B in custody. He cracked under interrogation, his bravado crumbling in the face of the law. Cool C and Mark Canty, realizing the gravity of their actions, went into hiding. But their freedom was short-lived. The dragnet tightened, and within days, they were apprehended. The evidence against them was overwhelming. Eyewitness accounts, fingerprints, and most damningly, the murder weapon, recovered from Cool C's possession. The trial was a media frenzy. The eyes of the nation were on Philadelphia, watching as the legal system grappled with the case of the fallen officer and the hip-hop stars accused of her murder. The prosecution presented a compelling case, laying out the events of that tragic day in chilling detail. The defense, hampered by the weight of the evidence, could only offer feeble attempts at mitigation. Section 8, The Price of Infamy, Life Behind Bars. The jury's verdict was swift and unanimous, guilty. Cool C was sentenced to death, a sentence met with both relief and a sense of somber finality. Steady B, spared the death penalty due to his lesser role in the crime, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Their lives, once filled with the promise of music and fame, were now reduced to the cold, harsh reality of prison cells. Behind bars, the weight of their actions pressed down on them with unrelenting force. The cheers of fans were replaced by the clanging of cell doors, the adulation of crowds by the deafening silence of solitude. Their days were measured out in the monotonous routines of prison life, each one a stark reminder of the freedom they had squandered. Their stories serve as a sobering reminder of the devastating consequences of choices made in the heat of the moment, of the enduring power of violence to shatter lives and leave behind a legacy of pain. Section 9. A legacy tarnished, the enduring impact of the crime. The murder of Officer Laretha Baird sent shockwaves through Philadelphia and beyond. It shattered the illusion that violence was a victimless crime, that the consequences of such actions were confined to the streets. It forced people to confront the uncomfortable truth that even those who achieved fame and fortune could succumb to the allure of darkness. The hip-hop community, already grappling with its own internal struggles and external criticisms, reeled from the blow. The actions of Cool C and Steady B cast a long shadow, tainting the reputation of a genre striving for legitimacy and respect. The tragedy sparked debates about the role of music in society, about the responsibility of artists to use their platforms for good. In the years since that fateful day, the city of Philadelphia has worked tirelessly to honor Officer Baird's memory and to ensure that her sacrifice is never forgotten. Schools, community centers,